This is Learning to Dad
I'm the cool dad. That's my thing.
with Tyler Ross.
What I do have are a very particular set of skills.
I'm gonna have fun, and you're gonna have fun.
Aaron Alex, Aaron Ryan, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast with me today. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing well. Thank you. How about you?
Oh, it's been a really wonderful day, and I couldn't be more excited to be chatting with you because voiceover is something I've always thought was really cool. It's one of those kind of unsung heroes of these amazing advertisements and shows and the rest. So we'll get into that. But first, Aaron Alex, Aaron Ryan, tell me the difference real quick.
Sure. So I've actually got 4 names in my name. I mean, I've always been a bit of an anomaly, I guess. But Aaron Alex is what I use as my name for voiceovers, and then I'm also an author of a sci-fi quadrilogy called Dissonance and several other books. And so I use Aaron Ryan as my authoring name. Provides some separation that way. As long as you call me Aaron, I will, or don't call me late for dinner, I guess is the phrase.
Well, are these books available for sale anywhere?
Yeah, one is approaching bestseller status right now. It's an alien, sci-fi alien invasion quadrilogy called Dissonance, and the prequel actually publishes next Thursday, the 6th. Available at dissonancetheseries.com or on Amazon.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you have a publisher that you worked with for that? You're the guy. That's awesome.
I've been a voiceover artist for a long time, and I got my roots back in 1993. But I've published 6 voiceover books while I was in a kind of a coaching mode, and all of those are available under my former stage name. I self-published all of those. It's a lot easier than it sounds.
Yeah, I have self-published 2 picture books through Ingram Sparks, and that was simple enough, but by no means have I come anywhere near bestseller status. How have you gone about, marketing these books to get such great sales?
Well, appreciate it. It's basically just all about continuing to feed the pipeline. So there are so many organic things that you can do. Social media awareness, I dare say annoyance on some people's parts, like stop, but you can't help talking about what you love. So several organic posts. There's post weekly. I blog. I have a paid ads that I've done in Facebook, Kindle ads, TikTok ads, Instagram ads. I have a networking group, several of them actually. I run a 32,000 member Facebook authors group that I talk with. And then there's the usual suspects as well that you can do, like promotions through written word media, the Fussy Librarian, Book Barbarian, Book Raid, Pretty Hot Books. There's all kinds of promotions that you can run that drive traffic to them. So it's been great. I absolutely love it.
So this is the perfect time for you to explain to me, well, show me your shirt.
Well, we're talking about parenting a little bit, and also just writing. So I have neither the time nor the crayons to explain this to you.
Well, I'm thankful to have about 45 minutes of your time. I don't see any crayons in the background, but
they're right there. There's the box.
Oh, there they are.
That's my kids' little coloring station when they come.
So
in.
your shirt is a lie.
Actually, it is a lie. False advertising.
So with all of these things that you're doing, is it fair to assess that the success is little more than consistency and grinding?
I think that's always the name of the game. You have to feed the beast and just continue to lube, that wheel and keep it turning. And you have to be able to spin a lot of plates too. As a business owner, you have to have a certain acumen in keeping things going on a number of different fronts at any given time, and that's just good management. All of that stems from goals. Good, strategic, SMART goals. That acronym SMART. Goals every day and just sticking to them. I'm very driven that way, both for voiceovers and authoring. And so it's kind of like Russell Wilson's dad once said to him, "Why not you? Why not now?" I love that phrase, and I've got other little mantras, I could show you here. This is from a movie I like to pretend doesn't exist, Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. your focus determines your reality.
That's great.
My focus is being a successful author and voiceover artist.
Why not you? Why not now? Has the hair on my arm standing up. That's great. Well, so did you ever have a quote unquote real job before you became what you are now?
I was a paper boy. No,
Yeah.
I was actually. I'm not kidding. So there's another lie. I was actually a paper boy. Dairy Queen worker. I was, though, graduating up the chain to telemarketer, and then I've worn a lot of hats in my life as a worship leader, an admin assistant, an executive assistant, a manager, of all kinds of different jobs. But I'm very much a self-made guy, very much an entrepreneur. I'm hardwired that way.
Mm-hmm.
So to work for someone else and to bring in money for their dream is always kind of like, I'm just wired to do my own thing and produce for my family that way.
Yeah, I can relate in that respect. So, but having worked for other people and now working for yourself, can you talk about the transition going from one to the other, where you like really kind of laid it on the line, or if you kind of slowly crept in and started with a side gig that built up until it was, sustainable? Like, what was that transition like?
Yeah. Well, I think everybody runs into that X after a while when you're working for someone else and then you're deciding to do your own thing. There's that inevitable crossover where you're fading out, what you're doing for someone else, and you're fading in what you're doing for your own thing. So my last real job working for someone else was at a drywall company in Woodinville, Washington. I was the service manager. I had been doing graphic design, multimedia production on the side since 2003, really. But this opportunity came in 2007, where I was because of budgetary concerns with the company, I was reduced to part-time, and so there was 4 hours a day instead of 8. Now I had all kinds of time to start pursuing my own dream. So I looked at it at the time like, oh man, what am I going to do? There goes half of my income. But it was really one of those proverbial blessings in disguises. It allowed me to start, onboarding my own thing and start pursuing that with vigor. Doesn't work the same for everyone. You have to kind of sometimes force that X.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a why not here, why not you, why not now guy, and your focus determines your reality kind of guy, you'll make it happen.
And do you looking back on it, it's easy to go, man, thank goodness for that, difficult time or that challenge. Do you remember being in the midst of it and like, were you freaking out, or was it a long period, short period before you kind of reconciled that, this is the right thing for me?
No, I think it was almost instantaneous because I'd already started pursuing my own line of work and crafts as a vocation. I don't think there was any kind of genuine prolonged anxiety in it. I saw it more of as an opportunity, or as opposed to a frustration, I guess. I think everybody just is going to face it in the circumstances that they are. I love, what is that phrase? Like you look at everything as an opportunity or an excuse, and I just looked at it as an opportunity. Really, I didn't want to use it as an excuse to get upset, frustrated every day.
When was that time in relation to your kids? How old are your kids?
So 8 is my oldest one. Brennan is 8, and that's this one right here. If you can see him. And then I don't know if you can see Asher. He's off camera for me, but he is going to be 5 in like 12 days, 13 days. So this preceded that by a mile. This was back in 2007.
Okay.
My first son was born in 2012. I'm sorry, 2016.
Roger that. So voiceover is a really cool industry. I've read a book about VO, and I'm going to use that slang, the verbiage VO, because I'm so cool. What introduced you to voiceover?
So, a long time ago, when puppies were the oldest animals, I was working at a company in Bellevue, I think, And essentially what they did was that they would produce PSAs, community service announcements, public service announcements. I was a telemarketer, and essentially was what I was, and I would call businesses on behalf of a local radio station, say, hey, Jack, it's Aaron Ryan, Aaron Alex here with KPLZ 101.5, and they would go, oh, what'd I win? They think they're on the air. And it was my job to sell them a PSA sponsored by them, aired on the radio. It really increased, goodwill for that business and image for that business. I was reading it. One of the customers one time, I would actually play a little tape deck. That's how old it was. Play a tape deck, push play, piped into the phone. They would hear it and hear me reading over it. And then one of the customers at one point said, that sounds great. We'll buy, but only if you read.
Wow.
I was like, okay, hold please. And I had to can I read this? And I got in the studio, put the headphones on, heard myself, listened to the music, heard the balance, and went, I really like this a lot.
Yeah.
And so that started the embers of that fire.
God, it's so much like picking up that picture off the Sandlot, or that finding that Abercrombie model in the mall. It's like you got plucked out by the universe and said, present you this opportunity, and you were listening to it. That's really cool. And clearly you work from home. The only time I've ever gotten to do that was during COVID, and I would do that for the rest of my life. I'm envious, because I would love to spend more time around my kids, as distracting as they can be. Talk to me about having 2 young kids in the house and working from home.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking of it right now in the context of, I'm currently the voice of United Healthcare. So if you see any of the commercials on the air, on the radio, online, that's my voice urging you to enroll and get the member ID U card. That's me. One of my greatest fears is being in a session, a directed session with a client, who is usually the production studio, recording me in there. This is my studio back here. And have my kids burst in from, the door is right beyond, over here. And then I can see them through this window. They can see me, and God forbid they would do what Asher, my youngest, just did yesterday, which was come in and, for whatever reason, make wolf howling noises. Ow! And I'm like, I look to the window, tapping on the window, make the angry dad face, purse the lips. I love my kids to death. I love my sons to death, and they are my world. So when they come in, it's always, I'm out here in the shop, by the way, 60 feet from the house. So when they make that trek out here, especially in the winter, it is a trek, to come out and visit, it's like, hey, buddy, good to see you. But they know, boy, do they know, because I've had to let them know, you don't make loud noises when you come in the office here, because I could be in a session. So, yeah.
It sounds like a challenge, but it sounds like as they're getting older, they're probably respecting that as they get feedback from Dad of, he really didn't like that very much. Is there any particular? Have you ever considered writing a kids book as an author?
I have, actually, and it wouldn't be so much writing it as it would be rewriting it, because it's the very first book that I did was called The Electric Boy, and I wrote it in 2nd grade.
No.
I kicked myself because at some point, it was like a 2nd grade, book report assignment, except, you write it. I wrote it. My mom gave it to me a year ago or something, and for the life of me, I cannot find this book.
Oh, no.
Because I would love to, I don't know where I put it. I would love to get it. I'd love to print it, type it up and print it, and grab those pictures and scan them and use those exact pictures that I drew in 2nd grade. It was a compelling story. It was pretty fun. That would be what I would start with.
Did it have a moral, a message you were trying to convey?
As complex of one as a 2nd grader could come up with, sure. It was more about like, oh, I'm turning into an electric boy. What's happening to me? These strange noises and these strange sensations. It wasn't anything, super. let's just say it came from an 8-year-old boy, so you can just kind of consider the source. My later ones do have protagonists with moral compasses, yes.
So if you were to just start anew without the electric boy and to write a kid's book, is there a message or lesson that you would love to convey in that way to kids or parents for that matter?
It's a really good question, and I would probably err on the side of messaging to parents. One of the things that my wife is really good at and has just driven home with me is the importance of being heard, having the child feel heard, number one. Number two, when they do wrong, anything wrong, which of course my children never do. They never do anything wrong. When they do things wrong, not if, when they do things wrong, is to really either to direct it to the parent or to the child to help communicate that really defining line that I'm angry at what you did, not at who you are. So many times kids internalize what they did, and I'm a bad kid, and I'm awful, and I'm never going to say yes. You're a really awful kid. I'm never going to do that. It's underscoring the difference. No, you're not a bad kid. What you did was I'm not happy with it. So we need to work on the behavior. Really positive messages to communicate to parents and kids.
I love that. So being an author, being a voiceover guy, wearing all these different hats, we probably share the same kind of restlessness that if I'm not doing something, I need to be doing something right now. How do you balance that with kids, because you're at home all the time with the kids and you're at home all the time with work? Have you put in practical steps that you adhere to, or do you kind of got it figured out naturally?
Well, I think after a while, like a rolling stone gathers no moss, right? You get that stone rolling, and it's just going to keep rolling, and it'll continue to work. You grease the wheel, and it starts. You get automation. I have to be really intentional about cutting off work at 5 p.m. I treat it like a day job, so I start it at 9 and I'm done by 5. I'm actually done at 3 to go get my oldest boy from the bus stop, and this fall it'll be both of my boys from the bus stop, because Asher's going into kindergarten. But then I go right back to work until 5. When 5 hits, am I going to get a notice or some kind of notification on my phone that I want to pay attention to? Yeah. I know there's going to come a time in the future where my kids will look at me and go, why are you always on that thing? Why are you always looking at your phone? And it's going to be like, you're right. So it's something I constantly battle with. So I have to be careful.
Yeah, the context of having devices all the time is one that neither you and I grew up in. We've been kind of, introduced to it over time, whereas our kids, mine are 8 and 9, so they're pretty close to the same age as yours kids. They grew up with it from day one. Do you have any screen rules with your kids?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's basically they have iPads. They won't have phones until they're 12, 13, whatever. Maybe a little earlier. I don't know. It depends on their responsibility level. But iPads, they love their iPads. I mean, we all love our screens. They're no different. They're just mini humans. But we do have a half-hour limitation for cumulative screen time, and their iPads. So they're you can implement the screen time functionality and settings to patrol that. Sometimes they're going to get the iPad and we're going to watch a movie or part of a movie, and we're going to watch Disney shorts right before bedtime. It just depends on the day, and you kind of have to go with the flow. If we go for a long drive like we did on Monday, Memorial Day, we drove out to Ocean Shores. Well, my wife and I would like some time to talk too, so we pull down the DVD screen in the back, plug in the iPad, HDMI it, and they're watching Angry Birds 2 in the back seats on the way there while we're talking. So it evens out,
Yeah. We the rule that we don't really have a rule, but one of the great things I've heard that informed me a lot was somebody said, when you give your kid the internet, you're not really giving your kid the internet. You're giving the internet your kid. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. So we let him play with the iPad on occasion, but it's usually under supervision of some kind or a limitation, because those little vortexes take him to weird places. But I got him switches. So if you want to play with the screen, play a video game that's not connected to the internet, so that it's like not exposing. It's a weird it's a weird world that we didn't grow up in, that we're trying to relate to and trying to figure out how to manage that. So with that kind of thought in mind, is there an advantage in the time that you grow up that your kids don't have that you can think of?
Oh. Well, yeah. I mean, I come from the generation of drinking from a garden hose and going out at 10 in the morning and coming home at 8 p.m. at night, riding my bike all around North Bend or River Bend, Washington. We just didn't. I'm sure the threats were there. Maybe they weren't as proliferated, but I'm sure the threats were there. They just weren't really on everyone's radar as much, and perhaps there was more trust extended. In my not to bring the conversation full circle to my authoring, but okay, I will.
Tell me about your authoring, Aaron.
I know, it's so funny. One of the synopses that I think another podcaster had attributed to one of my books, or a reviewer had said, terror lurks around every corner. The same is really true of the internet. It's a wild west of possibilities of, I mean, some of the horror stories that I read as a dad of teenagers who have fallen into nefarious hands on social media. It's so utterly frightening to me. And as a dad, I have to maintain vigilance. So the kids are not allowed to download apps. Any apps that do have internet access, we've already made sure that they're essentially hamstrung in that app to whatever minuscule internet functionality it needs, perhaps even to update some stats in your app. But it's not social media and conversation with God knows who out there in the world. It's just scary, and it's sad that it's scary, because we lived in more of an idyllic time, I think. So.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think you used a really great word, like what'd you say, proliferated. All tongue-tied now, but yeah, it was certainly there. We just maybe didn't know as much about it because it's not in your face constantly.
One of the things that I find so sad, Tyler, that I have to ask every morning when I send my 8-year-old off to school, which will now be faced with sending 2 off to school in the fall when they get on the bus. After Uvalde, I remember asking myself when I sent Brennan onto the bus, I remember asking myself, did I just send him off to school, or did I send him off to heaven? And that was just, I mean, you just live in an absolutely crazy world that we have no control over. And the best thing for me has just been prayer. Prayer for my son's welfare, prayer for the school's welfare, anytime they're outside of our supervision and control.
You do everything you can, control everything you can, and then you have to have faith in the uncontrollable in some way. So great segue into asking you, what character, well, okay, let's talk about roles. Like, as a dad, I have felt like part of my role, and maybe it's a reactionary to the role that my wife plays, and I think is natural to some feminine and, masculine natural roles, where one is the caregiver, one is, they literally were grown inside of you. You protect them, you scoop them up when something goes wrong, and then I feel like my role is, well, I got to turn you around, pat you on the butt, and say, there's the world, go get them, survive. So, like, do you feel that sense of balance between you and your kid's mom?
Very much, yeah. I mean, my wife and I have a great union, and we're very much in harmony with that. I think I felt very much like a fifth wheel when both of them were born, because I'm not going to nurse, I'm not going to have that bonding time, and I'm excluded, from that. There's nothing I can do other than pat one on the back and one on the butt and say, you're doing great, and that's all I could do. But yes, in charge of discipline and laying down the law, absolutely. Yes, also though, and I think this is really forgotten by a lot of dads, or not endorsed as much in society at large, is that dads are, and I'm going to credit my friend Holt, his 82-year-old spiritual mentor that I have. I love him to death. Holt said this, dads are in charge of fun. They are. They're the ones that come up with the silly activities and the dad jokes. Do you ever hear of mom jokes? You don't. It's dad jokes. And I have a calendar, God bless my wife for giving me this gift in Christmas. It's a daily flip calendar of just cheesy dad jokes. What do you call a hippo standing on one leg? A hoppo. And more just like that. And we're in charge of fun and the fun activities. They want to wrestle with me. They want to pin me down and tickle me like I tickle them. They want to chase and be chased. We're in charge of discipline, yes, but we're also in charge of fun.
I don't know if it was a professor or a psychologist, but I heard recently that that's like chemical, that's a biological thing. That's like kids' relationships with their dad is the rough and tumble, playful, and kids' relationship with their mom is the caregiver.
Yes, and it's also chemical in me. I don't know what it is, Tyler, but there is something primal, raw, completely satisfying about terrorizing my kids and sending them scampering for their lives. Not with fear out of I'm going to punish them, but like the dad face when they come around the corner, or doing something that just they scatter, and you get to hunt them down. I don't know what it is, but that's chemical, man.
It's so fun hiding from them, and they know you're hiding, and you can hear them in the hallway going, "Where are you? I hate it when you do this. You're gonna scare me." That's the best. So, given that those are kind of, we're collectively raising our kids. What are the 2 or 3 characteristics that are super important to you that you cultivate in your kids as you point them towards the world?
Well, number 1 is confidence. I wanted my kids to be confident, and they are absolutely supremely confident. And I'm so grateful for that. They know who they are. They know what they're about. Number 2 is that they know they are loved. And I have people in my life that I won't name, but they're part of my family, they're friends. They don't. It's like do you love your kids? Do you tell them that? My 5-year-old will reverberate back to us 85 times a day. Dad, I love you. He just says it out of the blue. And sometimes it's a little manipulative, because maybe his brother's in trouble, so he's trying to say hey Dad, I just want you to know I love you. Like that. And so he's smart. He's scarily smart. But we want them to know that they are loved. So number 1 is confidence. Number 2 is love. And I guess 3 would be to know that they are heard, to understand, or to feel heard rather. Growing up, I had a mom. It's changed now, but I had a mom who was always right, and by implication, that meant that I was always wrong. Mm-hmm. And so that's not terribly affirming when you grow up, knowing that you're growing up under, the smart person, and then you're the dumb person, or you're the right person and you're the wrong person. We admit to our children when we were wrong, or when we are wrong, and that's so important. They need to know that we don't have all the answers, that we're not the best bulletproof parents, that we will make mistakes. I'll never forget telling my son of some mistakes, and he was incredulous. He was, you? And I was like, I'm human, buddy. I was a kid too. I'm human. So,
yes,
those are the 3 things.
We are limited by our individuality, and then we find a partner in a wife or spouse that hopefully balances us out in some way, but we're still imperfect. We're a Swiss cheese of parenting with lots of holes and gaps and bridges that need to be crossed. So community is where I'm going with this. Can you tell me about your village or the value of community to you and raising a family?
Yeah. Well, I mean, make no bones about it. We are Christians. We go to a Christian church. We are not, fundamentalist weirdos like the media would portray us. We're just, a good, wholesome family that want good values and want good family friends that, family and friends rather, that have good values around us. One of the things that we do, that's our church. One of the things that we do every Friday, we were so meant to move into this home that we're in right now. I didn't like this home, ultimately. My wife liked it, and I was like, the ceilings are too low. It's too old. Whatever. But she was happy, and so we moved here, and we've since fixed up some areas and made it more modern. But the neighbors across from us, their dad is my best friend. Their mom is Janine's best friend, my wife's best friend. Their oldest son is Brennan's best friend, and they're both 8. Their daughter is my son Asher's best friend, and there's only 1 year of difference between the two of them. So we all have our best friends, and we all have our people right across from us. Every Friday we do what we call Friday, and we have food, sometimes watch a movie, most of the time just sit around and talk and be in community, and we have a family of 8 all of a sudden. It's just, and you need that. We were so meant to be at this house next to those people. That's
beautiful when things just synchronize like that, and it feels genuinely meant to be.
Yeah, you don't know that when we're moving in. But one of the coolest things, and this is how God works, is we came to this house. You know how when you're buying a house, they stage it, the owners stage it, and then they leave, right? Well, this was an older couple, and so we ain't leaving. So they're 70s, 80s, whatever. And I think she also had all these trinkets and like crystal and ceramic stuff, and so little kids coming in, somebody's going to break something.
Yeah.
So they were there, and they walked us through their home, and that's really unusual.
Yeah.
But they, meeting us, saw all of us and went, oh, honey, they would be a really good match for the family across the street.
Yeah.
So we're glad they were home. We're glad they felt we would connect.
That's wonderful. Being a guy of many diverse skills and interests, is there a skill that you've really enjoyed teaching your kids that they've picked up from you?
Yes, but they've more picked it up. It's got to be DNA, I swear. I'm a creative guy. They are exceptionally creative, both of them, particularly my 8-year-old. He can make a craft out of air. I don't understand, like, some of the things he made. He made literally made a transformer out of paper, where it's essentially, you fold it this way and it's Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And you fold it back this way and this is now the cape and it's Batman. I was blown away. He made a Superman the same way, and the kid is just insanely talented, creativity wise and craft wise. And Asher is kind of following in his footsteps. So it's really, it's so. I think they're going to make millions someday. And can I have some? I think they're just going to make a lot of money, and we're going to be rooting for them the whole way. We're not like a big sports family. We're just not that kind of family. But I think they're both very smart and very crafty.
So what's something you've learned about yourself after being introduced to parenthood? I mean, life completely changes the second that kid's there. And I mean, of course, you evolve as the kids get older, your role changes, and they inform you about yourself. What are some of the things that you've come to know about yourself that you didn't know 8 years ago?
Well, one of the things my wife is kind of famous for saying, like, people who know her know that this is a Janineism. She said, assume they're for you. And that's just extending the benefit of the doubt to people, and wanting to know people's story. Like, people will be driving like a maniac on the highway. I'll be like, you moron, and she'll go, honey, you don't know their story. And I'm like, I don't want to know their story. And like, but it's, I know I do know their story. But maybe they're rushing somebody to the hospital. You don't know. She just has that kind of benefit of the doubt, and I've tried to employ that in my my relationship with my kids. I found out how impatient I am and can be. I'll never forget when Brennan, now 8, was less than 1. Or I don't know if their fingernails really grow that fast that age. Maybe he was over 1. But I was clipping his nail, and it's hard. It's a terrorizing activity for a parent to have to do, because you're like, I got it. Okay, moving on. Okay, that one's okay. Okay, moving on. It's just like such fear and trepidation. But I got him one time, and he cried and cried, and I just took his little face, and I put his screaming bloody murder mouth right up to my ear, and I just said, "Let me have it." I did it. Let me have it. And I took it. I took that rage and that anger and that sadness and just tried to absorb it, because you need to hear them. I'm not always the best at that at all, but you need to hear them.
You can tear me up thinking about the depth of that and how much you would just soak up every bad thing that your kid has ever experienced personally, so that they didn't have to do it. That the reality is, without that contrast, they would never genuinely become resilient or enjoy the highs without the contrast of the lows.
Well, there's another thing too. I mean, circling back to just the state of the world today. It's a scary world out there. You try not to. I mean, you don't want to have your Clydesdales on the whole time, but it's keeping a good focus and trying to keep your children optimistic. One of the things I talked with Brennan about a few years ago now was the reality of 9/11, and I showed him some of that footage, that there are bad people out there, or misguided people, that will do terrible things in their misinformation or their flawed belief system. It's just, I mean, even Hitler thought he was right. And you just try to train them in the ways of, for Christians, we train them in the ways of righteousness, and inform them of some of the realities of this scary world. But when we reach those teenage years, we have to be far more vigilant than we are now, and we have to be far more available to them than we are now, because they're going to need us, even though they'll say they won't. As teenagers, they need us always.
Yeah. How do you envision that role evolving between now and then? Like, your role now is clearly to take care of a 5 and 8-year-old, and you have that relationship with them. What do you see in the future as, Aaron Dad, 5-10 years from now, and how's it different than now?
I'm really not that prescient.
Yeah.
I'm actually writing a novel right now called Forecast, and it's dealing with that very thing. Boy, I mean, I think you just kind of have to. Here's my answer. One of the things I have learned, actually, I should have mentioned earlier, is you have to roll with the punches, and you may have a set manner in which you expect the day to roll out, and it's kids keep you on your toes, man. They're not going to roll with the punches. They want their way, and so you have to kind of give and take. It's like a tree in the wind, and so I have learned and need to learn a little bit more to just kind of roll with the punches, be willing to flex with them, and understand that it's not always going to go my way, and that's okay. That really is okay. They're going to need me to be more flexible as they get older anyway. So hopefully, where's wood? I need some wood. Knock on wood.
Let's bang on that wood again with this next question. So we all hope to live very long lives, and hope that we predecease our children as we are old men. If your kids were to speak at your eulogy 75 years from now, what are the types of things you would hope that they would say about you as a parent, as a friend, as a leader, as a business person, just as a human?
Wow, Jiminy Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you said, I think you said, years and years from now when that happens. So yes, knock on wood.
Yeah.
I know that they would say he loved me. I know that they would say that. I'm absolutely supremely confident that they would say that. I would hope they would say that. I would hope that they would say that I was I cared about them utterly and was always in their lives. But I think that's going to be proven. One of the things I've done nearly every day since Brennan was about 3 months old was start a journal. And so I've journaled nearly every single day of their lives since May of 2016. Something about them. Something about who they are, what they're learning, what accomplishments they've done, where we're at as a family, things that are happening that we're going through, socio-political issues that are going on around us, developments, whatever. Just I want them to know that I'm thinking about them. And one of the things that they're going to see recurring over and over and over again, I hope they do run a search for the word love or the phrase "love you" in the journal, because it's pocked intentionally with that phrase and that word. But one of the things I've also done intentionally is using what God said to Jesus when he got baptized. He said, "This is my beloved Son, whom I am well pleased, in whom I am well pleased." And so I have that phrase in there more than a few times. "You are my beloved sons, in whom I am well pleased." I want them to know that I was pleased with them and love who they are. No conditions, no strings attached. I love you and am crazy about you for who you are. I think they'll say that.
That I could only hope for the exact same thing. I think that's beautiful, Aaron. As we're wrapping up, getting close to 45 minutes, I want to hit you with a couple kind of semi-rapid fire questions here.
Okay.
The first being fictional dads. Like, let's talk about, you're into nonfiction. I'm sorry, you're into fiction. I'm sure being VO, television, books. Like, is there a dad that you always loved now or growing up, or that your kids see on TV that you're just like, that dad is great?
Yeah, it's Bandit. 100% hands down every day of the week and twice on Sunday. It is Bandit from Bluey, bar none. Bandit is just like the quintessential model dad, and yes, he's a cartoon, but he that guy has it all together. He's involved in his daughters' lives. I think they're both girls, right? Bluey.
I think so. Yeah, Bluey and
the other one, Bingo. I think they're both girls, but gosh, he loves them, and gosh, he plays with them, and man, he tells them that he loves them and is involved in their lives. So yes, I love it. One of the things where'd I put them? Right here. So look at that. They're conveniently placed near me. That didn't happen by accident. So this is my trilogy, Dissonance. But I didn't feel released. This is the last one, Volume 3. I didn't feel released when I was done with this trilogy. I was like, I've got to write more. And when you understand the story, there's an alien invasion that happens. And 16 years after that alien invasion is where these pick up. So there's all this story, and I had to go back and write the part of the dad from his perspective when the aliens came and invaded. And boy, did I channel a lot of our own family into that family. Andrew behaves as I do. Cameron behaves as my son Brennan, right here, does. Ruddy behaves as Asher does. Melissa, aside from smoking, she smokes in the book, behaves like my wife does. So it was, I would say, fictional dads, and he's a good man. He's a really good man, just trying to keep his family safe and provide for them. So maybe Bandit and Andrew.
There you go. Andrew, I love it. What are 2 or 3 qualities that any super dad, characteristics that any super dad just needs to have?
Availability. Number 1, make yourself available to your kids. 2, tell them that you love them over and over and over again. They can never hear that enough. And when you discipline or are talking about discipline, make sure that they know that it is the behavior that you are addressing, not their identity. Guilt is about what you did. shame is about who you are. We will never use the phrase shame on you. That was used on me when I was a kid with horrifying consequences. I will never say, nor will my wife ever say shame on you. So the third one is make sure that you address that their behavior is what you're upset with, not their identity.
Awesome. And I'm going to put some pressure on you, Aaron, because I'm really excited to ask you this question as a highly creative person. So we're going to talk about gifts that you would give to every dad. I love that you're not shying away from the challenge. No consideration for space, no consideration for time, no consideration for money. The universe is available to you to bestow upon every father on the planet a gift. What gift would you hope every father to have?
Oh my gosh.
Told you I was going to put the pressure on you.
Yeah, that's a hard one. Excuse me while I step out for a minute.
I gotta get the Google machine for a
I
minute.
have to take a phone call.
Poll the audience.
I would definitely say, I would, what is it, the lifeline? You want to use a lifeline? I would absolutely say patience is so important. I would give them the gift of patience so that they would really understand patience. Because, boy, when my 8-year-old in particular is disobeying, I can fly off the handle. It's never abuse, it's never violence, it's never hitting, but I can get angry. You know, I want him to obey. It's so important that he learns obedience. Because if you don't obey me, maybe someday you won't obey the police, or you won't obey whatever laws, drinking, driving, whatever, sexual purity. I mean, so many things you might not obey, or respect boundaries. So patience when they disobey would be probably the number one thing I would give, because I think that's really lacking in men, where you can be hotheads. We're the ones with the adrenaline, you know, and the gosh, now I'm forgetting, not estrogen.
Test.
It's the women have testosterone. We have the testosterone. You know, we're driven and we're grrr, and we just need to kind of cool it first and think. Patience.
Awesome. And then, when in your life do you feel the most love?
Gosh, you know, honestly, the first thing that jumped in my head was Father's Day.
Yeah.
It's the first
What's a
thing
Father's
that
Day
jumped in
look
my head.
like for you?
That's the day. Well, it's got to have bacon, eggs, and sausage, and orange juice in the morning. You got to make that.
Yeah.
It's just ruined, man. It's ruined. I get to sleep in. The kids come and jump in the bed and pig pile on me. We talk, we laugh, we go somewhere, we do something fun. But you know, and gosh, I just had my 51st birthday. I know I don't look that old or act it, really. We started late, but I got a card from my kiddos that both of them drew me. They drew us hugging each other. So here's my 4, almost 5-year-old with a picture with, you know, it's just a stick figure with arms outstretched, and Dad's got his arms outstretched down and a big hug, and Brendan did the same thing, and it was just like, you know, I'm not crying, you're crying. It was such a sweet card. Stuff like that. It's just the kids show you. There's so many times where you feel like an imperfect dad. I missed an opportunity with my son, or I wasn't there for them, or I've disappointed him somehow, or, you know, whatever. And you feel like an imperfect dad. Those are the times where it's just so restorative, you know.
Yeah. That's why I've got mine here at my desk.
That's great.
Yeah, every time the kids come into the office, they leave a little thing. It's the best.
Yeah.
And so, in conclusion, and I'm going to ask you to stray from your journal, because I know that's there, and I think that's just the coolest thing in the world. I started one when my daughter was born, and I didn't stick to it. I wish I had. But in the event this recording were to live forever, like your journal will, and you were to give a message to every Alex / Ryan / Smith / all your family members, your kids, their kids, their kids, their kids, generations to come, what message would you share with them?
I hope I did well. I hope you felt heard. I hope you felt loved. Because I heard you and I loved you. I wasn't perfect, and nor will you be, but you just try to do the very best that you can and leave the rest to God. It's weird writing your own epitaph, but those are the sentiments that I really want to convey, is just to let them know that I hope they felt loved, affirmed, chosen, celebrated, listened to, enjoyed, cherished, all of those words, because that's what they were. You are my beloved sons in whom I am well pleased.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, well, Aaron, sign us off with your Instagram, your website, your books, your VO. Hit us with where everybody can find you and check you out.
Sure, and oh look, these are still sitting here. That's so weird that they're still here. So this is as an author, I'm Aaron Ryan, and you can go to dissonanctheseries.com, or you can go to authoraaronryan.com. This one is actually being converted into a screenplay as we speak for pitching to major networks like Netflix, Prime Video, Apple TV, Paramount Plus. I am stoked beyond belief for that. And so this is a quadrilogy. The fourth one is the prequel, which is publishing next Thursday the 6th. You can go to author Aaron Ryan for that. It's a tremendous story of justice versus revenge, choosing, of patience, of trusting, of a character arc that involves a faith journey. And I'm really proud of how it turned out. It's not just a story about aliens. That's authoring. Voiceovers, I am at supervoiceover.com. My branding used to be a superhero, thus you can see the logo in the back there, my studio. But supervoiceover.com, I have voiced companies, Microsoft, Uber, Amazon, Gatorade, Cadillac, Wrangler, Nutrisystem, just Uber, all of the big companies. I'm Enterprise, I've voiced Fidelity, tons of them. Right now I'm the voice of United Healthcare, and really loving that. I'm very grateful for that opportunity because it pays really well. But also it's just really good reputation out there, and needs more work, and it's union work, which gives me benefits, so I love that. And then I've sung, I've done poetry, just blah blah blah, so all kinds of different ventures. Really grateful for all of them.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Aaron.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.